Welcome everyone to our webinar on how to boost your project ROI and profitability by using digital innovation. Thank you very much for joining us this morning or this afternoon or evening for you it is. I thank you for joining us. As I said just earlier that my LinkedIn account was blocked for no reason for 10 days. They just wrote me 10 minutes ago apologizing they've done it by mistake, but I couldn't really connect with my network and update people and so on. So I presume this is our closest people who kind of joining us most of the time. And so I assume actually most people actually know us in this room. But just in case if we have new people, because I did receive a number of emails, people saying I want to invite my colleagues and so on, I will quickly introduce us for those who don't know us. So QPQ is a digital platform created in support of green energy project developers worldwide. We support developers in renewable energy, waste to energy, hydrogen production, and energy storage. Main focus is to accelerate development and financing and attract world-class partners and funders for projects that we work with. We also we work closely with over 400 professional investors worldwide. Most of the leading private equity infrastructure funds, most of international IPPs, and collaboration is quite close. And so we know investment criteria and what our investors invest in and don't invest in, where they invest in, on which terms, how they want to participate. And we also know how they want information to be prepared for their investment process, and due diligence process. So if you kind of come forward and you have green energy projects, you can also, we run also a program. It's Green Energy Project Funding Accelerator, where our advisors.
I'll be adding a link to the Funding Accelerator page here in the chat. So you can go and basically submit your project there and learn about the program.
Yes, exactly. But basically, our advisors will assess your investor readiness and understand what is the investor readiness gap, because we know, as I said, how how investors work and how they want the projects to be prepared for investment process, because the biggest problem is that projects often are not well prepared, financial models, documentations, and other things. So we have all the lists of requirements from investors, and then we prepare projects in advance to actually approach investors with the right investment case and the right preparation. That's somehow in the nutshell. Vlad has just shared with you the link. So do check it out. Would love to help you. This is our passion, and that's what we do here with all the commitment and passion of all of our team and advisors, day ins and day outs. And then of course we facilitate these webinars on an ongoing basis, and we bring kind of very, very experienced people from industry with incredible track record to share some knowledge and wisdom with our network. So with that, I would like to, I'm very proud to have Charlie Menger with us, who is incredibly experienced and accomplished individual who've been developing projects that are kind of enhanced with technologies, green energy projects, right? With in almost 50 countries worldwide, with governmental, academic, entrepreneurial, and philanthropic organizations. And then Charlie is based in the US, and he has over 40 years experience, quite interesting international attorney, entrepreneur, consultant, advisor. And professor as well. So Charlie knows how to share the knowledge. So now it is with my greatest pleasure. I would love to invite Charlie to the stage and share his wonderful content with our group. I'm also very excited because we kind of covered. Hi, Charlie. So we covered a lot of topics, hydrogen production and energy storage, waste to energy, and how to finance your projects, how to package them. But we haven't spoken about technical innovation. So that will add quite a great value to our community. Thank you very much, Charlie, for joining.
Great to see you, and thank you for making it so early. I know it's about 6 a.m. for you. You're in Seattle, right?
But I also heard that you just came back from Mexico and you are also a little bit of you're not feeling that great. Yes. Well, thank you so much for making
Yeah.
effort.
Yes. Thank you, Charlie.
I've been looking forward to this so much.
Yeah. So just before before we give the stage to you, everyone who is attending today, please, if you have questions, during Charlie's presentation, post them in the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll have a short Q&A session in the end of the presentation, and we'll also upload the kind of handouts and Charlie's presentation in the handout section next to the chat. Well, thank you, and great to have you here, Charlie.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, Charlie. We'll leave you to it.
We will be on the background. If you have any questions,
Okay.
Sharing your screen or anything, just you talk to us. We'll come on stage again. All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Charlie.
Great. Well, thanks for having me here. I thought what I would do is a very short intro and then get over the presentation. I grew up in Seattle, but I was trained in U.S. and Japanese law and economics and trade policy because I was wondering how that little island became, at the time, the second leading economy in the world. And that was my specialty. And on graduation, I had the good fortune of being hired by Japanese government and companies to work all over the world. And they trained me how to go and find a really large problem, or as I say, a gnarly problem, and to then assemble the necessary and sufficient parties around the table so that we had the ability right there in that room to deliver turnkey solutions, to design, build, operate, and finance projects that would unlock value, just incredible value. And I was always wondering why in America we didn't do more of that. And I found there were a number of reasons. One of them was actually, I practiced law for many years, and one of the things I noticed was that the project members would sue each other at the end to redistribute money. And so there would always be this fight. And typically when I was working with the Japanese partners, they would all be from one keiretsu. They didn't sue each other. They just figured ways to work things out. And I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if we could adopt that kind of keiretsu mentality and work together to solve very large problems in a way that all of us that are working on it do better, and the communities where we work do better. And one of the things I noticed every time I worked on projects was that we needed to assemble the right know-how and technology and capital. And if we had those three things, then we could infill the extended enterprise to fill all the roles necessary. And so this morning I've been asked to talk about green energy digital innovation. And the reason for this is I met QPQ through a friend of mine over in Europe named Takis Gavayanis, a dear friend. And he and I are always looking for big, gnarly problems to solve. And I'm working on a project out in the Pacific Northwest now. And he said, why don't you check with QPQ? And we had a great conversation, which then led them to asking me to do this presentation. So that's how we got here. And I'm going to switch over now to the, hopefully, screen share. Pull it over. Half a sec. There. So the point of this is, how can we leverage digital innovation to deliver outsized returns for the green energy developers and financiers, who I understand are the main participants in the webinar? So I'm really tailoring my comments to folks that are on the front lines, that are getting deals done, looking to get deals done. And I noticed in my travels that I attend data center conferences like Data Center Dynamics. And through them, I was meeting people that were working on really exciting ideas like the Autonomy Institute. I highly encourage you to check them out and Jeff DeCoe's work and all the people he's organizing. I'm starting to see more and more people thinking about how can we cross-pollinate different silos, different sectors in ways that accelerates and improves growth and profitability in that space. And this is one of them, because I would go to the power workshops, conferences, and meet with key players in the industry, and they were talking about similar things to the people that were over in the IT side. But I noticed there weren't a lot of places where they were in the same room. And I thought, well, maybe we need to start doing that more and more. And that kind of drove my thinking around these issues. So green energy developers and many others are facing really huge challenges right now in our chaotic world. These include geopolitical challenges. I don't know about you, but I wake up every morning and check the news to see what's going on in the countries where we are currently working or plan to work, because it can dramatically impact our strategy, our plans, and our execution. One of the geopolitical changes is international trade wars that impact the availability of advanced chips, solar panels, and other essential materials like rare earth minerals or other components for the green energy projects, as well as the IT side of things. Then there have been significant transportation logistics disruptions that originally started with the COVID-19 pandemic, but they've really highlighted some weaknesses in our supply chain, some reliance on single source suppliers. And anybody who studies history knows, yeah, you don't want to just have one supply for critical things. So I think everybody is scrambling to figure out ways to decentralize supply chains to make multiple supply sources available. And finally, in the area of green energy, there's a very interesting issue which is going on at COP27 in Egypt right now, as the leaders of countries, companies, nonprofits, academia meet to talk about the climate crisis. We've noticed a lack of harmonization across national regulations from country to country, the pricing of energy, and then their carbon policies. So these are things that affect how we look at the geopolitics of our projects and where we see growth potential. The other thing that is on everybody's minds is rising interest rates and inflation. And these have an impact on the labor market, on capital expenditures, and either increase or decrease demands for power, which have just been happening very rapidly. Remember, after the pandemic, many factories would shut down because they could not figure out how to maintain a safe work environment with people standing at least 6 feet apart and so on. And so that reduced the demand for power suddenly. And when everything kind of got back to working order, that spiked the demand for energy. What we're seeing is that these uncertainties around rising interest rates and inflation are having a negative impact on project financing activities and related costs. And for those who are already in contracts, it's really going to expose some weaknesses if they don't have adjusters built into their agreements for power pricing and the cost of delivering projects. So this is not just for green energy, but we've noticed a real downturn in IPOs, in up rounds. There is a lot of caution. People are really taking a wait and see attitude about what's going to come out of the COP27 event. Is it going to improve or degrade the investment climate into green energy? And I'm seeing the mixed messages from that. Actually, I'm seeing, people saying, oh, big conversations are happening and big possibilities are available, but that they're feeling like there may be kind of soft commitments. They're not quite sure how this is all going to work out, but there does seem to be increased urgency and increased emphasis. So I think one of the first things that's going to come out of this is stronger demand and support for green energy projects. So this also is being impacted by a wait and see view about the apex of interest rate increases. You know, how high is high? And what are the impacts of inflation on proposed deals? So I've worked in countries that had such high inflation that people recalculated the contract amounts owed or to be received on a daily basis. They had a whole floor of a large office building just dedicated to recalculating amounts payable and amounts receivable. We're not in that level of inflation yet, but it's certainly something to keep in mind. And there's also a situation where there's different methodologies and different markets for carbon credits that might be able to create supplemental revenues from our green energy projects and our digitally enabled green power projects that are available through either existing or newer methodologies. And we have a team of people who are at the front edge of that and have a ton of experience doing carbon credit development, certification, verification, monitoring, reporting from back under the earlier Kyoto Protocol. And so it turns out there's a lot of people that know how to help green energy developers and financiers cultivate and harvest additional income through that carbon side of things. And so we're very thankful that we've assembled a team that's, you know, the been there, done that people. So here's the big idea. We can bridge the digital divide to solve challenges, reduce risks, and boost returns. And I spoke about the digital divide at a data center dynamic conference in Silicon Valley. And it turns out that people on the data side of things are very hungry to try to find ways to solve the digital divide because they realize there's the haves and the have-nots. And what I realized when I spoke with them is that there's plenty of interest, but somebody's got to create the projects for them to jump into. And so I started talking with the Autonomy Institute about intelligent infrastructure. And that lined up with the kind of work I used to do with Japanese Keiretsu. They would always go in and do huge infrastructure projects first, because that laid a foundation for everything that came after. And then I was fortunate, after my work with the Japanese wound down, because they entered that long-term recession, I still had the Keiretsu knowledge, but I went to China and I worked on clean energy projects throughout the country. And I've worked with a very small team to assemble 5 gigawatts of clean energy, just 3 of us and a translator, working with local owners to go through term sheets in Mandarin and English that we structured to be very understandable, to do the kinds of things that QPQ is so helpful with getting owners ready to do a transaction. And I thought, what if we combine the Chinese method of coming up with strategies on a top-down basis and the need to execute projects from a bottom-up basis? And what if we did that as private-led initiatives? We don't need to be communists to be clever in that way. We can look at the big problems and develop a strategy, and then we can assemble, like we did with the Japanese Keiretsu, the necessary and sufficient parties around the table. But I saw some weak points on both the Japanese and Chinese methods those years before, and I thought we need to combine it with some agility and some disruption. We need to be brave, make the first steps, and there's so much that we can leverage from those business models, but we can improve upon them. And that's really what I'm sharing with you today, is a way to combine the emerging digital capabilities with intelligent infrastructure, especially green energy is the focus today. So this is a picture I drew a long time ago. I had been meeting across industries and across, as Oksana mentioned earlier, government, academia, corporate, and nonprofits that are deep into these subjects. And I noticed there was something happening. There were people that could talk about the IT layer. I call it the cloud platform now because a lot of it is in the cloud, but it's based on physical facilities and software and devices, and it's distributed. And I mean, with the Internet of Things and machine-to-machine learning and AR, VR, that's exploding. It's just creating a more powerful platform that we can draw on. But when I go talk to platform people, they talk to me about how fast the data moves or where it can move to and from, and how it can be stored safely, and where there can be energy and data redundancy. That's the conversations we have. How many racks can you fit in? How many servers per rack? What's the cooling requirements? And so on and so on. But when I go to the smart applications across infrastructure, and by infrastructure, I include water, wastewater, transportation, waste, and importantly, energy. Because when I worked with the design, build, operate companies, some of them are really great at infrastructure and cover all those 5 categories. The facilities is then the buildings that are running on top of that infrastructure of any type: residential, retail, institutional, governmental, academic, on and on and on, office, industrial parks, and so on. And then a dashboard to manage it, depending on the standing place of the viewer, and devices that connect it all together. On top of this, there's the activities. And here it says city, but what I've been doing recently is scouting areas to create digital business clusters with work, live, play capabilities, because this creates really advanced economic benefits of diversification and growth in areas that have been left behind, like timber dependent communities, or mining dependent communities, or even traditional farming communities. There's opportunities to unlock value in those places and take them in a totally new and amazing direction. So I show this very simple picture on purpose. It's to signify that many of us live our lives professionally in one of these layers, but that the serious value add comes by working across these layers and looking for ways that wherever we are and whatever we're doing, we're thinking about the layer above and below us, and how we can leverage our capabilities and resources to help create value in that additional layer, because that's where you can create real symbiosis and synergy. And so let's take a look at the layer cake as an integrated data and green energy service, which has valuable crossovers with the infrastructure layer and the facilities and the live, work, play functions. And then let's look at ways to unlock value where you work on projects relating to the people and the place and the resources. So I've teamed up with some folks based in Canada and Latin America and Europe who are really, really deeply into the carbon credit programs. And we noticed that there is a huge supply of carbon development opportunities, and there's a huge unmet need for carbon credit purchasing, but there needs to be a do tank. Some people who are very deeply entrenched in getting things done and how the pieces fit together. And so here, I wanted to show some of the things we can do with the combination of IT and green energy in places where there's a overlap with carbon credit benefits. And the countries that are lit up on the screen have various levels of carbon availability, carbon financing, carbon revenues. And in every place we work, with every digital business node, it opens up opportunities to offer a bundle of services. And I start at the top with e-trading the energy, the electrons, like a virtual power plant, a VPP. And that idea is just an extension of the IPP business model, which we were doing back in the 80s and early 90s, to create dedicated power generation and distribution on site to one or more customers, key customers for that energy. And sometimes we would work on a one-to-one basis where the power generation just went to supply a very large industrial company or a large institutional player. But more and more, I noticed countries like Singapore were developing the early stage industrial parks, and groups like Semcor Industries has just done an amazing job creating platforms with all the infrastructure built in for specific industries who can then just come plug and play into that space. So if we draw upon some of these lessons that have been out there in the world, we can see that, look, first off, we can do some energy trading amongst the users at the site, and where it's allowed, we can trade the energy with external users to help meet shortfalls when it exists. And of course, we can do e-work. This morning is a good example of it. Knowledge work, the knowledge economy, pretty much needs energy and data to support it. And so that's a very real thing that can happen, as well as e-government services. There's a number of great programs out there showing how much more efficient and effective governments can be when they've got the energy and the data to meet the various needs across education and healthcare and so on. And then e-education programs. Yeah, I did just get back from Mexico teaching engineers and business students. I love teaching young international students who are so hungry to absorb new ways of thinking and doing things, because they're ready then to get out in the world and do big things. And I feel like I was so fortunate to be kind of adopted by top Japanese executives and government officials who showed me how that little island could be so effective by picking strategic verticals and then building out these turnkey solutions within them. And then to contrast that approach, or to add to that approach, to work with top level Chinese state-owned enterprises and government officials at the state, the province, and the local levels, showed me how amazingly it's possible to do that top-down strategy, bottom-up execution, and deliver on these kinds of initiatives, the whole list. You just anticipate that they need to be included, one or more of them, into your business node, and you're already starting to add new value beyond just delivering the energy. The other interesting thing I found out was I worked for a group that showed me how that buildings and infrastructure can be updated over the cloud, just like our phones. And at the time, it was a very revolutionary idea. I think most people can imagine it now, or maybe have even seen it. But when we complete the digital business nodes, they're not fixed at one point in time, but they're like an evolving platform, an evolving functional set of interconnected parties. And they update over the cloud just like our smartphones. How cool is that? So that improved, Teslas do this. Those cars, they just get updates and suddenly you have new features, functions, and capabilities that you didn't have minutes before. So let's just bring that over to the infrastructure and to the facilities. The other thing that I learned was it's possible to design in pre-planned interstitial spacing to accommodate the co-location of additional or replacement technologies going forward. So around posts that support the building, around walls that are surrounding the enterprise, you add some extra space to think about, we don't know what's coming, but we'll have some space to tuck it in there when we need to. And then finally, each digital energy node is actually just like the core of many unique development areas. It's like a mosaic of development. No two have to be exactly alike. It can reflect local priorities and preferences. We engage the local community. We align with local government policies and priorities. We show them what's possible to leapfrog forward into them. And that enables us to create just an endless variety of new opportunity, new development, and new diversification. Okay, so let me see. There we, oops, wrong button. Haha, keys to success are in reach. Sorry about that. I don't expect you to read this tiny print, but I was just going to show you that on visualcapitalist.com, you can find these charts and blow them up on your big screen display. And the reason it's important is because major emitters are a good source of business for green energy developers and financiers. And I mean that in the broadest sense. The big emitters are really in a position of the greatest pain. But it's potential pain until they make a commitment, which is that second chart that says race to zero, race to net zero. Those are people who stuck their neck out and said, yeah, we're in, we're going to get to zero. And they're finding it's not as easy as they hoped. So guess what? They're hungry for people like us who know how to bring together the right know-how, technology, and capital to deliver on their commitments, to help them, feel good about what they're standing for and to help them get there. So these two charts show where the highest per capita carbon emissions are. And then we go over to the other chart to see, okay, which countries have raised their hand, which industries have raised their hand, which specific companies or investment funds or banks have raised their hand. And across the silos, we can track those and then start to target in on where we need to deliver the digital business nodes comprised of green energy, IT-enabled services, and the companies that we invite to co-locate there. So here's the simplest picture, and I use this because when I explain to people we're going to co-locate companies at a data and energy hub, I got to just let them see it. Look, it's this simple. It's independent. It's resilient. It's inclusive. It's amazing. In each location, the core data and green energy enables services that support multiple technology businesses. Here I just show 5. It could be 50. It could be 500. It totally scales. These digital business nodes are designed to be built, operated, financed on a turnkey basis. That streamlines time to market. That's what I learned from the Japanese keiretsus. And I learned where to set these up from the Chinese top bottom. They're about the trend, not
Is it just me or no? We cannot. You also cannot see Charlie, right? You cannot hear him.
Can you see me? I cannot.
I can see you. Yes,
I cannot see
Charlie.
myself.
I don't know. I can see
Okay,
you.
okay. I think we're back. I think we're back. Well, at least.
I cannot hear.
Charlie, okay,
Charlie.
good.
What happened? Did the screen disappear?
Yes.
Yeah, we couldn't hear you for about a minute, I suppose.
Yes.
Oh,
So
really?
you will need to backtrack a bit. Sorry. I still
Okay.
can't see you and can't see myself, but we can see Charlie. That's what most important. Charlie,
I think I lost you, Charlie, where you were talking about different stakeholders raising their hand and yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me backtrack. I'm so sorry. I don't know
Every
what
time we have some surprises, but it's okay.
That's a
It's
surprise.
okay. Okay, good. Now we're back online.
Can you see? Uh-oh, just a sec.
Yeah, I can see your screen. Yeah, I'll tell you when the.
This is so interesting. How about now?
Yep, I can see the presentation.
Okay.
Yep.
So the various parties raise their hands and they want action. And so that's another feature that I want to emphasize this morning is that we're really concentrating on being a do tank, not just a think tank. In fact, you could consider us a do tank for the think tanks or for people that have big ideas they want to get done. And the idea is that we combine the data and the energy and we can co-locate 5 companies or 50 companies or 500 companies to be engaged in technology-driven businesses. And I saw an opportunity to go into distressed rural areas and underperforming urban areas to help them leapfrog into this new business model. And they do have a big appetite for digital business nodes to localize and de-risk supply chains and unlock new value in the local people and land and resource. So most of you have an energy background. You see pictures like these. My suggestion is that we as an industry need to look how to team with the X as a service partners. And it could be platform as a service or software as a service or medicine as a service or education as a service. It could be many things. But these services help monetize the business nodes beyond any additional products or service or products that are being made at that location. And so we typically want to host, in addition to the physical attributes of the place, we want to host research and development. That includes an accelerator to take ideas and move them to a point we can prove or disprove their value in a very accelerated time, like 10-week cohorts. And then those which are kind of ready to go to the next stage can come into a 3 to 5 year incubator, which functions on site to co-develop new improvements and disruptions from the digital business nodes. And also we can cross-connect to other digital business nodes for growth and diversification, which provides us redundancy and resiliency at each site. So that's really what I wanted to share with you today. And I hope that after this conversation that we will all have a chance to kind of explore some options and pick a path and move the ideas forward, because it is very much needed at this time, in these chaotic times in the world. So thanks very much for letting me share.
Okay, well, Charlie, okay, I'm on stage. Okay, cool. I still can't see myself, but I can see that you can see me looking at your screen. Well, Charlie, thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. Hey, Charlie, where did you go? Okay, good.
Sorry, now I'm back.
Very good. So thank you very much for such a wonderful presentation. I love the macro view that you've given and kind of inspired quite a lot of ideas, as well as specific ideas that you've given. I'm sure there will be a number of questions that, so let's just ask for some questions. Do we have questions?
So there are a couple of questions that have been shortlisted from the audience. So the first one is, from having worked across continents and countries, how does one adapt a standardized collection of data? So would all units be able to adapt a common minimum platform, or would they be dealing with multitudes of standard operating procedures?
I love that. That is a great question, because that is about execution. And a lot of times ideas get stuck up in the atmosphere. People are so excited about the vision, they're not asking that question. And that's the one that matters. Do you guys know ASHRAE? It's like the Association of Heating and Cooling Experts that work in the data center industry. And they developed a whole set of standards that just apply to data centers anywhere in the world, which allowed data centers to be compared one to the next, to the next, to the next. And we need something similar for digital business nodes, actually. And I would love to cooperate with some people in figuring out what other standards could we bring over and adapt to our need. How could we hook up standards for the platform itself and then the interconnects between platforms to really create something that is standardizable and can meet the needs of each local community? That would be amazing.
Okay, great. So another one, with the team, me and Amira, we kind of looked before that, we looked at the presentation, and there is a question that we wanted to ask, from QPQ. How would it be possible for a company like us, for QPQ to standardize the model of operations to all of our clients? So data adaptation, would it be an easier area to fix rather than global standardization of operations?
Well, that's really exciting, because when I met you, I thought QPQ's platform could be a perfect place to do this, actually. So I'm meeting people like you that are so ahead of the game at the part you do, at the interconnects, at the networking is so powerful because we can reach the whole world now. Then the next step comes, oh my gosh, where can digital be cross-pollinated with energy to unlock these additional values? And it's everywhere your clients have projects, actually. That's the one side of it, is on the project side. But here's the other interesting side. The Japanese used to send me to meet angel investors, pooled equity funds, commercial lenders, philanthropic foundations, local development agencies, bilateral development agencies, multilateral development banks, import, export. Guess what? There's trillions of dollars sitting on the sideline. And they will tell us where they want to see this to happen, so that a platform like yours and all the constituents can activate their businesses, can grow their businesses. I call that solve for X. I have a background in math and physics, actually. And so what's very funny is I went and talked to all these different kinds of investors, and I said, oh my God, there's 8 channels of money. And they're each looking for something different, but we can solve for it by the way we structure and the content we put in, the location, the scale, the timing, all the things that are probably on your checklist as you help people through your accelerator to be ready for the funders. Well, guess what? There's 8 channels of funders hungry for opportunities at different stages, in different to accomplish different impacts. And that's the thing we can do. We get together, and then we can design, build, operate, and finance these 2 standards that work.
Can you give me a specific, Charlie, sorry, can you give us a specific example, like a real life example? Let's just say, solar energy or wind, like how would that would be done?
Well, so here's the interesting thing, Oksana, is we don't care what kind of clean energy it is. It's an inbox of electrons that can be used at that site and then drive these other services. So I'll give you an example in just a minute.
Yes.
I'm working on a biomass project in a remote area that used to be famous for timber. They were a timber dependent community. But 30 years ago, 20 years ago, they lost 27 sawmills. There's no work for the people. And so I was called there because they have a problem with biomasses filling the forests and making them so dangerous from those wildfires that burn for months and months. We never saw that before. It's just crazy. They said, please get rid of the extra stuff. So that became a feedstock to go into some modules that are distributed and produce products, which then go out into the market. And we run it all with remote sensing, big data, analytics. It helps us use very small teams to harness a very large resource, solve a big problem, and create value. So that has both the data element, a resource element, where we're taking a waste material, a non-commercial material, and creating commercial value out of it, including biopesticides, torrefied pellets to get coal companies to pivot to a green fuel, biochar to go onto the farms and earn both carbon credits and help regenerate the soils for better productivity and water retention in these times where drought is becoming a more real problem in several areas of the world. So this is one of those funny things where data plus energy drive a forest technology project and some agriculture technology projects.
Very, very interesting. So now I'm not very technical, so I'll be asking, dumb questions. You can call it this way. But I still a little bit, okay, so we have a number of projects, say, in waste to energy and very similar, that they're creating, real hazard, right? Of fire and toxic waste and all other things, right? So when you say, and you kind of give this example of waste to energy project and you utilize big data and analytics, what exactly did you analyze and how did you apply it and how it's actually benefited to the project?
Okay, so in America, we have big land, big resource. That's how people think. But I don't look to America for help with big resource, big land. I go to Europe, where they have technologies that allow me to explore high value in smaller areas. I use drones that have visual and temperature sensors on board, and they can read the forest, and they can tell me where I need to send my teams, and they can track it here. It tells them. And these are things already being done in Europe. But
Okay.
so we
Utilizing you're
bring
just
them
giving
to the United
example.
States. Yes,
Mhm.
yes. And the places are so vast that it's very helpful to us to have technology narrow down the areas we should focus, so that we're not wasting all that manpower and money chasing the resource. We let the resource tell us where it is, and then we send our teams directly to it, for example.
Okay, interesting. And then again, so talking about, say, analytics or artificial intelligence elements and other things in improving project profitability, right? So would that how exactly that would do this again? I don't feel like
Okay. Well, if you have people that have a project that's producing energy and there's some land nearby, we would come and take a look and see what projects could be on that land that would be a good customer for the power and can unlock value locally. And so I just got back before Mexico. I was in Montana. And in Montana, there's a group doing advanced manufacturing that is just incredible. They receive the orders over the internet into a big computer-driven manufacturing machine that creates a production of very custom parts, which are extremely valuable. And they ship them directly to the end user. They have cut out several steps along the way that were very expensive and time consuming. So in Montana, we're looking to do actually an advanced manufacturing hub. They're like the next stage of digital industrial automation, and they need power. And so we have land nearby that will create the power from either solar or wind or biomass or geothermal in many cases, or other forms of energy. And we have users. That's what I mean to co-locate, like not only the energy, but these value add producers of things, as well as creating workforce housing for people to live, work, and play.
So basically, that every project would need to be analyzed, kind of assessed, and then you would propose some customized solution in terms of how to optimize the project, improve project ROI and its profitability. Yeah.
Exactly.
There is one more
So
question actually, which is
sure.
project specific, probably a niche question. What would be a fast path to bring low TRL, high impact technology to serve data centers on a cooling as a service basis?
Okay, so the TRL is technology readiness level. I spend a lot of time with brilliant people and disruptors, and I love them. Oh my gosh, the things they come up with. But one of the things that's hard for them, many of them, is how to move up the technology readiness level, because they have an idea and then it's got to go through prototype, it's got to go through bench test, then it's got to go through like a pilot, then it's got to go through commercial scale, then it's got to go through, to actually get to market and make money. It has a lot of additional steps beyond just technology readiness level. So we have a whole group, I call it TechCo, and they are the tech people who know how to cultivate, improve the technology readiness level of each technology that is involved. And then on the project side, this is what I saw the Japanese Keiretsu do. They find the problem that needs those technologies and they put them in the market. So they give traction to the technology company. They've got to work together. So in our business model, there's a project pipeline which draws the new technologies in at different levels of readiness. If they need a pilot, they get a pilot. If they're ready to scale, we give them something that can scale. And
how do you do that? Through network of partners and collaborators, yes, and strategic relationships. Yeah, this is wonderful. It's so great to see that's happening, because there are so many project developers or innovators that approach us, and they have fantastic technologies, and we definitely see how those technologies would add incredible value. But then they say, okay, well, we haven't really scaled commercially yet. We need to do pilot. We need to kind of test and our product or process on commercial scale. And unfortunately, like we work with professional investors and very much on project finance side, right? So none of them really finance this sort of innovations, right? So that's even so. For example, it may be even project, that is, but it utilized perhaps technology that has not been kind of tested on commercial scale, and that will not be funded.
Right.
To the greatest our disappointment. But of course,
Right.
investors are very risk averse, and you just need to kind of. I agree with you. It's just it's creating partnerships with people who actually are willing to do this, to actually integrate it and test it on commercial scale, right? And they obviously have strategies to de-risk it and hedge their risks, right?
Yes, there's a group called VC Lab, which is training people to set up VCs that can make a difference in the world. And I was fortunate to be admitted into that program for a while, and I learned a method to get the pre-seed capital and the seed capital into those kinds of companies that you really feel strongly can make a difference, but they're not ready for a regular investor. So I call it the capital life cycle, from seed to growth to exit in one way. But in another chance, there's the pre-development money, the construction financing, and the takeout financing. They have their own way of talking and participating, but there is a way for groups like QPQ and people that come to you with technologies, and then the financiers, to work with perhaps some additional resource to bridge that gap.
Well, you see, unfortunately, the venture capital is not our focus, but definitely projects that utilize some kind of innovative technologies have great potentials, and some of them kind of actually returning incredible IRRs by virtue of actually utilizing these technologies and creating efficiencies, right?
So that's a very good point. I was just in Vancouver, BC with the Creative Destruction Lab, CDL, and I mentioned project financing in order to bring technologies in, and they all threw their arms up in the air saying, we're not project financiers, we do venture.
Okay, good. Well, we will definitely be sending, we collaborate with Green Backers in UK, but definitely we'll be also sending some good technologies your way to kind of, let's discuss that, right? Because we are planning to create fund, but that will be more for, that will be kind of next year, our plan to support projects in development phases, more like on DevEx side of things, right? But then again, having some partners who are prepared to take some risk if it has some sort of innovative technology, that would be fantastic. So perhaps we should discuss this. So, well, we're really making good timing here. Charlie, thank you very much. You were kind of short and sweet, but you delivered fantastic message. I really appreciate. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really, really grateful. I'm thanking everyone for being here today. I hope you enjoyed the presentation as I did. I've let anything we need to.
There was some issues with people downloading the handouts, the presentation. For some reason, it doesn't look good when it's downloaded. So it's, we're gonna resend it by email to everyone who have registered and attended today. And also, as Oksana mentioned in the beginning, due to issues with LinkedIn, we were not able to reach out to the whole network that we have. So we're gonna be sharing the recording with people who have registered, but also with the rest of our network through LinkedIn by email. So everyone who missed the part of it or the whole webinar was very interesting. So we will send the replay link to everyone.
Fantastic. Well, Charlie, thank you very much. I wish you a wonderful day. It's only beginning for you. It's the end of the day for us.
If we would wait for another hour, we would see a beautiful forest through the window.
That's right. Right here. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the audience. I think that everyone is stuck throughout the presentation. So, Charlie, it seems like everyone was finding it quite interesting. Thank you once again. Yes, we'll see you. Our next webinar is next month, and that will be facilitated by our team and myself, dwelling and going deep into investor readiness. So we will share with you checklists and mindset and what exactly expectations of investors and how to prepare yourself, share with you our kind of insider knowledge on how to prepare projects for investment process and attract world-class funders and partners. Thank you very much.
I've just resent a green energy project funding accelerator link for those who have projects and want to submit them for review. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you, Charlie. Thanks, Oksana.
Vlad, you need to stop recording, yeah?
I will, yes, of course.